So are you therefore saying that people need to have clarity on what is happiness? Because for some, getting assets and acquiring assets seem to be a way of acquiring happiness. Okay, and once they acquire the asset, then they're not very sure if that made them happy. So therefore, are you saying the articulation of what is happiness is something that is the real problem? But you know what, the way I look at myself is, when I was 20 years old, I wasn't as mature to decide what's happiness, right? So therefore, how do I start off? And for the audience who are young, how do you define happiness? For somebody who is in a mid stage of their career, how do they define happiness, and does it change over a period of time?
Yes. To answer your last question, I do believe it changes over time. It is related to experience and maturity. And I say these things, and I will say them because I believe them, but I recognize that the ability of a person to hear, understand, and implement will reflect their personal circumstances. And I know that people's personal circumstances are different. I wish I could give myself the same advice I am giving now to myself 30 years ago, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have listened because I thought I knew then what I wanted. And the things we'll talk about are not a recipe, they're not a prescription. They are more food for thought. And so I can't define happiness for someone else. I can only define it myself. I would, however, say that the advice is to think about it and don't necessarily accept what your colleagues, your family, and society is suggesting is a recipe for happiness. I came much later in my career after having reached many of my goals and by all accounts having every reason to be happy with my success. I came to question whether that was sufficient. And I really, we'll talk about this later, started to wonder whether the normal things that people define as success were correct. So the wealth, the power, the job, the house, whatever it might be that you thought you wanted, those didn't seem to be sources of enduring satisfaction. So we've blended two terms now. We started with career success, and now we're talking about happiness. It's relevant to do that because most people equate career success with happiness. I would say whatever metric you're choosing, whether it's having more money, getting a spouse, living in a certain place, in a certain circumstances, whatever metric you're choosing, you simply need to ask the question, how is this going to contribute to my happiness? Of course, if you don't have enough money to live the life that you wish, then it is very natural to say, if I only had more money, then I would be closer to feeling happy. I get that. There is research that suggests there's a limit to how much increasing your income increases your happiness. But a lot of people could say, hey, I'd like to test that limit myself and make more money and see. I completely understand that.